Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. A weird game, honestly, and I'm not going to overreact to the loss. I'm not happy. I'm not thrilled that they went 7+ minutes in the fourth quarter without scoring a field goal. They had 2 field goals in 8 minutes and 48 seconds in the most crucial part of a basketball game. So I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you that I'm totally okay and I'm totally satisfied with that. I want to see how they respond on Tuesday because I thought Nick Nurse brought this great game plan in of making Joel Embiid uncomfortable. You just witnessed Joel Embiid drop 50 points. Well, what are you going to do to make sure that he can't do that again? Get him out of rhythm. And I didn't think that there was one damn moment in this game where Joel was able to go in his bag when he wanted to. There wasn't time and space for him to do some drop steps, for him to do his Olajuwon footwork, for him to do Euro steps down the field. You name it. They swarmed him and made sure that there was at least another body ready to pounce, which made Joel Embiid think if they did bring the double, then they brought the double. If they didn't, there was at least that thought or that worry from Joel Embiid that, hey, they might bring somebody because there was always a defender ready to maybe go towards him more, or it was a disguise. They sure made Joel Embiid think. Now, I will say this. For all of that, Joel Embiid pretty much countered very well with the passing side of things. Not so much in the third quarter when the Raptors went on their one of many big-time runs, but I'm talking more specifically early game when he did pass out. He passed out very smoothly, and the Sixers were passing the ball around beautifully. They just weren't able to make shots. Tobias Harris started out 0 of 6 from 3. Him and Seth Curry combined shot 3 of 16 by the perimeter. I was okay with the shots that they were getting, and I thought ultimately they would fall if they continued to get those looks. It was just not their night. They finished shooting 29.7% from 3, 11 of 37, and the 37 really stands out to me because we all have seen that this team wasn't taking a lot of threes. They weren't making a lot of threes, and they weren't taking a lot of threes in an era where it's nonstop three-point shooting, fast-paced basketball. In this game, based off of how Joel Embiid was defended, that forced them into doing it. Unfortunately, their shooters weren't going to cash in tonight because it wasn't their night. You might play that game out again on another random weekday, and it could be a totally different outcome. I think this is more of an anomaly than it is the real thing. Now, they have flaws, okay? This Sixers team does have flaws. The bench continues to be a problem. Shake Milton came back from injury. There was one spurt where he came out in the second half and made 3 threes. But other than that, you saw a lot of rust. Not that I'm demanding him to come back from the injury and just be some dominating force, but there was definitely rust involved, and you know, there were stretches of ugliness in play. Dwight Howard's getting pick and popped to death. And there was a lot of ugliness involved. The bench comes in the game, you have problems. Coach Lynham called out Furkan Korkmaz after the game on Post Game Live. And here I am going for a standing ovation for Coach Lynham for calling out the fraud for missing all of his damn shots. He's so bad right now that Doc Rivers elected to go with Isaiah Joe over Furkan, who is clearly better on the defensive end. Now, he isn't a perfect fit, and he's not perfect because he still needs to grow as a player, but he has the intangibles that Furkan Korkmaz does not have. There was a time people would ask me, Brodes, would you go out and get J.J. Redick at the deadline? And I said, I think you have the three-point shooting somewhat figured out between Seth, Danny Green, Furkan Korkmaz, Isaiah Joe. I think you might need to really zone in on a primary ball handler for that second unit. Maybe a stretch 4. And while those are still needed big time, the shooting that I thought maybe they had covered within 4 guys somehow. Those 4 guys, I don't feel confident in them anymore whatsoever, to the point where I need to readdress my thoughts. And maybe you do have to go out and snag somebody. The problem is they need to be able to bring it defensively as well. And I don't think that there's many of those options out there. 3-and-D guys are solidified in their spot, in their roles as we speak. They're not impossible to find big picture, but for this time of the year, yeah, it's not as easy to get. Fred VanVleet in that first quarter was insane. He had 13, 14 points. They went on a 16-0 run. And one of his 3-pointers was a half-court heave that banked in off the glass. It was like a 360 shot put right off the glass and in. That's when you know the basketball gods are on your side. You also have Boucher looking like Ray Allen. This guy was dropping dimes all night. I guess dropping dimes means making great passes, so I didn't mean that. I meant from a 3-point shooting aspect. He was cashing in. He was also blocking Joel Embiid by the backboard as well. It was wild. It was just such a weird game. You know, Baines is logging in 30 minutes on Joel Embiid. This team struggles to play in Toronto. This team has the black cloud following them whenever they head into this building. They got to snap out of it. There's no more Marc Gasol. There's no more Kawhi Leonard. And I don't know why I said Gasol like that. It made me uncomfortable, and I had to freeze for about 5 seconds as you heard that awkward silence. Marc Gasol. Let's reiterate that. And there was no Kyle Lowry either. Talk about a pest defensively who I can't stand. I can't stand his face, and all he does is bitch and complain to the refs. I didn't miss that side of the game because you would have you would have seen that for, 10 to 20 minutes of him just walking up to the refs' faces, complaining, looking all miserable, and then somehow, some way getting calls on the other end. Now, I hate to be this guy because this is just how the NBA works, but damn was the reffing pathetic in this game. But once again, that's just how the NBA is, and I acknowledge that going into games. So I hate to point it out because it should be an obvious. It's obviously inevitable. So I hate to complain and really harp on it. But I thought that they were miserable. Boucher, not so much. Now, when they play again on Tuesday, that's going to be telling for me. I'm not going to scream and bang the table for this one, but I want to see what Doc Rivers does differently. I want to see what Nick Nurse does differently, because I really doubt he's going to come out with the same exact game plan, unless he does and then waits to see how Doc Rivers fixes things, and then once Doc Rivers counters, then Nick Nurse has a secondary option ready to rock and roll from there. Maybe Nick Nurse goes with the mentality of, look, Doc Rivers does this all the time. Until you stop us, we will constantly run the same play. We will do it over and over and over and over again until you stop us. So I just wonder, will Nick Nurse go with this philosophy of what Doc Rivers says? I will continue to run this defensively until Joel Embiid figures it out. But I kind of go back to early on and throughout this game, I didn't have an issue with the way Joel Embiid was passing out of the double teams and finding his guys. Hell, the other night he had 31, 11, and 9, and his 9 assists were definitely tremendous, and he is clearly getting better from that part of the game. That style of play for him, that passing style, has clearly improved. And you saw it tonight. So if Nick Nurse does the same thing again, but Tobias isn't 0 for 6, and he's more of the 40+% Tobias from 3 that we have seen this season, and same with Danny Green not fouling out, looking ugly, same with Seth Curry not having a tough day from behind the arc. If all of that changes and they are more of the versions that we've seen them be, well, you might not be allowed to double, or maybe not always double, but throw different looks at Joel Embiid the way that you did. Also, though, keep in mind, you'd rather rely on Seth Curry. If you're the Raptors, right? You'd rather put the ball in Seth Curry's hands, in Tobias's hands, in anybody else's hands other than Joel Embiid's. So maybe, just maybe, they think to themselves, you know what? If we lose because Seth Curry hits threes, fine. But we're not going to lose because Joel Embiid is going to jab step us to death. You see all the time that Joel has time and space in the mid-range game to be able to shoot off the bounce, get into that free throw area, and go up with it with ease and with comfortable poise. Joel Embiid gets the ball, and then here he is, and he's staring down his defender as he faces up and does the face-up game. Hits a couple jabs, goes to the rack, maybe he throws his hands up, gets fouled. It wasn't that easy for him because as soon as he would try and get established, that's when the mayhem would come. That's when the chaos occurred, and Joel had to get rid of the ball quickly and pass it off to a teammate. So I'm really interested to see how the Sixers counter and how Nick Nurse counters as they play each other again on Tuesday night. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was outstanding. This was a great game from him. His stat line read 9 for 11, 28 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 10 of 14 to the free throw line, missing a few late, but he was awesome. And the aggressiveness is everything we need it to be. And the Sam Cassell dynamic is wild, all right? I really have to start giving credit to Sam Cassell because as he's getting to the free throw line and this flow of his shooting at the line is awesome. It's everything you need Ben Simmons to continue to work on, and I'm looking more big picture when I see him constantly walk to that charity stripe. He looks confident. He looks comfortable. He wants to be there. He knows that he can get there more frequently. He wants to be there. Quite frankly, that's the most important thing. He wants to be there more frequently because inside of his mind, it's give me the damn basketball. I'm going to drill these shots. And we've been hearing all the discussions since the new coaching staff has been in place, how Sam Cassell is essentially being that Ben Simmons guy and working on Ben Simmons' game with him nonstop. And you are starting to see how that has developed and how that has progressed over time. Sam Cassell, I love you for this, and we need to continue to see him grow. But Ben Simmons, for him to score 28 points on 11 field goals, that's miraculous. I would have never believed you in a million years if you told me that would be the case, let's say, 2 weeks into the season. Now, I know some are looking at it with this mindset. Well, Joel didn't have a big night, so that's why Ben did. I still haven't seen both of them have a big night at the same time. Relax with that. I'll be honest with you. That's annoying to me. That pisses me off. You can say a certain statement about a lot of teams that haven't won yet. Why? Because it's that damn hard to win. You can nitpick Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. You can nitpick Jokic and Jamal Murray. You can nitpick all of these duos in the NBA that haven't won a championship and say they're never going to win a championship. Guess what? The odds are in your favor if you say that. It's not so easy to win a title. So you're not going out on a limb. You're not saying this crazy statement to say, they're never going to win one. Well, guess what? Your odds are in your... Congratulations on going out with something that's so easy to defend because there's a good chance you don't win a championship because it's so hard to reach the top, especially when you have some of the crazy weapons that are out there in today's game, like LeBron James, like Kevin Durant, who was now healthy and playing with a three-headed monster in Brooklyn. I just can't stand it. Oh, you're so smart. You're such a genius to say they'll never win one. Please, let me have some of your basketball knowledge. I would love to. It's ridiculous. It really is. 2 field goals in 8 minutes and 48 seconds. I had such a weird time watching that game, too, and I think a lot of it had to do with what Joel Embiid did on Friday night with that 50-point performance. It was so awesome and so tremendous that I had so much fun watching that game. The joy inside my body reached an all-time high. And in this one, it just wasn't there. Even when the Sixers did have the lead, even when the Sixers had the lead early, they had a double-digit lead early. Now, look, it's the first quarter. There's so much time for the opposition to make runs, and damn it, they sure did. But there was no, insane, legit, exciting moments in this game. It just felt like a regular season blah type of game. Even when Ben came in. Like, there was a time, right, when the Raptors were making their push and making one of their runs, and then Doc Rivers had Dwight Howard, Ben Simmons, and Matisse Thybulle out there on the floor. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? That's a problem because there's not much scoring, there's not much shooting, there's not much spacing involved. So statistically, they have a rough time at times producing offense. Good defensively, more so with the top two guys in Matisse and Ben. Dwight Howard has his flaws. I saw Dwight Howard be really frustrated because he got an offensive rebound. He thought he got fouled. He threw the ball up all pissed off like a fake try and shot, but not really a shot, just to try and draw the foul. There was no call, so he stared down the referee by the baseline out of bounds while the play was still in action, and nobody was pushing the ball up court for the Raptors, so he just stared at whoever was 2 feet. Like, he didn't realize. It was almost as if he was focusing so much on the ref right in front of him. But to the left, the Raptors weren't pushing the ball up the floor. They were waiting and somewhat regrouping. And Dwight just fouls out of nowhere. Big frustration foul because he was so annoyed. That just defines everything about Dwight Howard's game and his intensity with the fouling aspect of everything. But Ben, I bring that point up because I'm worried about that lineup. I'm not happy about it. I also saw Derek Bodner of The Athletic tweet the same damn thing as my mind triggered also. I'm sitting watching the game, and I always talk in my head, and I have the thoughts rolling around while watching the game. And I'll say things like, well, what are they doing here? Why are they going to this? What is this rotation? Why is Ben not doing this? What is Joel going on? What's going on with Joel here? I always have all these thoughts and questions pouncing through my brain. And when I saw that lineup, I questioned, how are they going to produce offense? But here's Ben Simmons up on the perimeter getting a big-time steal and a full-speed dunk the other way. And that was one of maybe 2 or 3 times I had a little bit of buzz. Another one was on a Ben Simmons slam, but it was going the other way. But ultimately, I guess it's hard to live up to a Joel Embiid 50 burger, but this game lacked something for me. This game lacked excitement, lacked entertainment, and there's Sixers losses that I'm still entertained with the game. Just from a pure basketball standpoint, there are plenty of times where it's a good game and you walk back to wherever you go when the game's over. Maybe you turn the TV off, you go upstairs to grab a glass of water, a Dr. Pepper, a glass of milk, whatever you drink at night, a fat cup of coffee. You go? That was a fun game. Unfortunate they didn't pull it out, but it was a fun game. This lacked something for me. And it's crazy to think that with Ben Simmons giving you that type of aggressiveness, because normally that moves the needle. But I just thought it was an awkward game, an out-of-character game, and it was hard for me to kind of be fully engaged for some reason. But where I am fully engaged is with my friends over at Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure that your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Their solar program eliminates your electric bill completely by offering flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. In addition, they will make sure you receive all the state and federal incentives available for switching to solar. There's no risk and no need for investment. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So check out their information. It is all down below. All right. Let's get to the Anytime Hotline. I want to hear from the people. Here we go.
I was watching highlights from the playoff series a few years ago before this game, and I was really pumped, and I was ready to kick the Raptors' ass. Just a letdown game. There's nothing else I can really say. We weren't making shots. They were. That's about it. And I think we wanted this game, but we just were outplayed, and that's all I can say.
They were outplayed, and you said the Sixers didn't make their shots. The Raptors did, and that's why I feel, I'm not going to say okay with it, but that's why I question the outcome, because I feel the Sixers make their shots at a better rate than they did tonight, which could have changed the outcome completely. I will bank on Seth Curry shooting better. I will bank on Tobias Harris shooting significantly better from the perimeter. He was 1 for 9 from 3. That's not the Tobias Harris that we have gotten so far this year. And for him to be that bad early on, that's out of character for Tobias Harris. Now, I thought in the second half-ish, he came out and made a couple tough ones, getting to the rack after starting out slow. He was trying to find himself more offensively, and that's what you do. If your shots aren't falling, find a way to see the ball go through the rim, attack the rim, score easier, get closer to the basket, but it never really fully went throughout his entire game after that. I think the Sixers will be just fine if they play the same way and just make their shots. I think it's really that simple. Now, you touched on watching the playoff highlights prior to the game. Kudos to you. That playoff series is damaging to me. It's hard to go back and watch anything related to what happened previously against this team in the playoffs. And to be honest with you, that's so far away and two different teams and totally different rosters. I don't know. I can't do that. Maybe I'm the one that's in the minority here, but I'm not going to go back and watch something that happened a couple of years ago before a regular season game. I'm not knocking you. I'm not judging you. I respect the fact that that gets you going. If that's what you need to make you run through a damn brick wall, then so be it. I do a lot of funky things as well, so it's not as if, I shouldn't be judged for some of the stuff that I do. I just can't do that. That's something that I probably would never do.
I don't know why you expected anything less from this Flyers team in the way it is right now with half the fucking team gone.
All right, well, I apologize for that, because I know the Flyers are going through right now a game in Lake Tahoe that is not going very well. So people were calling into the Anytime Hotline about the Flyers as well. We'll find another Sixers one here.
Terrible night for the Sixers tonight. Joel Embiid looked off because the Raptors defense or whatever. Their shooting continues to not do very well. They need to add a couple shooters at the deadline. And it's just a bad loss because they didn't even have Kyle Lowry, and we're leaving guys wide open for threes, and then we have guys wide open. We can't hit them. If you're wide open, you gotta hit your shots, and Sixers couldn't do that, and they're falling in the rankings a little bit. Not falling, but Brooklyn's catching up to them, and that's not a great sign.
It's not a great sign, but I think that this should have been realized. There's a reason why I wasn't ready to jump on the bandwagon after the first handful of games. Because it was the handful of games that starts out a season where you played a lot of mess, you played a lot of slop, and then you would learn more about the identity of the team. Like, there's a reason why I wasn't screaming, here we go, here's a championship from week 2. And everyone jumped on my case. You mentioned the defense, and that was obviously a point of focus for the Raptors and how they defended Joel Embiid. There was a time where Brad Stevens put the tape for Ben Simmons. How do you defend Ben Simmons? You build that wall. I hate that statement. It makes it sound very political, and that is not the road I want to go down. But that is essentially what they did for Ben Simmons. They built the wall, and then Brad Stevens put the blueprint out there, put the tape on everyone. I'm not saying this is going to work every night, but I think there is something to Nick Nurse now establishing something that can maybe slow down Joel Embiid. And I am worried that this will be established, this will be seen, and this will be something that teams do over and over and over again. Now, I will always counter by saying this. If Tobias Harris doesn't go 0 for 6 to start the game and he goes 3 for 3 or 3 for 4, can you still bring the intensity that you did on Joel Embiid? Or does it all change and now you got to do something totally different because Tobias Harris is going to kill you? Then I always bring up, would you rather Tobias kill you or Joel Embiid kill you? To some extent, obviously, the answer is you'd rather Tobias do it, and you can't allow him to keep shooting forever. At some point, if that was staying true, and that was him being hot all night long, you'd have to make the transition to him. I'm just worried, though, that now, for the first time all year, there seemed to be a game plan that made him feel so uncomfortable that a team elects to utilize this method moving forward.
Here come all the angry Sixers fans looking to rip apart everyone and be all pessimistic and, when in reality, it's pretty simple. They missed just about every open three possible. And, in fact, I think there's actually a lot of good to take away from this game. First of all, Ben Simmons, besides those 2 late missed free throws, was really aggressive and really good from the line. And that's the kind of thing that in the playoffs, that translates. That level of aggression, that level of setting up his teammates to brick open shots, that still helps them if they make them even better. Obviously, Joel Embiid, everyone's pretty mad about him. But I thought for the first few quarters, he was passive in a good way where he wasn't forcing anything. He was just setting up his teammates. And, when the doubles came, he just made the right pass and his teammates couldn't hit shit.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all on the Joel Embiid thing. On the Ben Simmons side, though, I think that there is something to push back on a little bit. You mentioned that this relates in playoff basketball. And I will somewhat push back and say I don't know if it does. I don't know because this pace is still fast, right? The pace of playoff basketball is slower than what you witnessed tonight. Even though this is an experienced team, and look, they don't have the same type of roster that was making serious playoff pushes, but they still have a talented team, and they are a well-coached team, and they still have something to prove, if you will. So the Raptors are still a team that you can put stock into when it comes to a regular season matchup. But for the pace to this, it'll be even more slowed down, and the slower the game is, the worse it is for Ben Simmons. And because these games now will not be the same speed as it is in the playoffs, I don't know if it relates. Now, he might still play that same way, but I don't know how much stock I can put into this. I love the fact that this is reality, though. I'd rather it be this and me question this than him not bring it at all. If you told me the alternative is we have the pissed off version of Ben Simmons, or the version of Ben Simmons that pisses us off, the fans off, yeah, I'd rather have this, and I'd rather be pessimistic on Ben Simmons than him just flat out be awful while he shows in regular season games that he's bringing that mentality switch. I'd rather it be this way and me be concerned for playoffs than him never do this whatsoever. So from that aspect, yes, I'll take this, but I think it's totally acceptable to wonder if you're going to have this be applied to half-court sets. We heard Ben Simmons just a few days ago bring up how he is changing the way that he thinks about the game offensively. And you can see it. He is backing that up. It's a different beast, though. It's a different beast. When we talk about May, June, it's not the same.
What's going on, Brodes? Frustrating loss. It's the Raptors just kept blitzing Joel Embiid, and guys like Danny Green and Tobias Harris and Seth Curry aren't hitting their three. This team's not going to win many games. It's a really tough loss. I'm not trying to overreact after the one loss, but super frustrating. Tobias Harris just was not good enough. And just a separate thing, kind of off and open, Allah Abdenabi's kind of pissing me off. He doesn't think anything is a foul, and that's when he's not jerking off for on court laws. That's all I got for you. See you, Brodes.
Yeah, the Allah thing is fascinating to me. The more and more I hear him, I'm kind of out on him. He did bring up a Waterboy reference, though, and shame on Mark Zumoff. You know me, I love Mark Zumoff. We have a good relationship, and we communicate and all, but for him to not know a Waterboy reference when they were bringing up Bobby Boucher, you got to know that one. Look, I'm not a big movie guy. I don't watch a lot of these movies that everybody's seen and all these epic classics that everybody quotes. I'm bad from that aspect, no doubt about it, and I'll admit it. I'd rather watch a 7-hour baseball game, a West Coast extra inning baseball game, than a 2.5-hour movie. And I would say that 2.5-hour movie is too long, but the 7-hour baseball game is not long enough. It makes no sense, and I acknowledge that. But yeah, I'm with you with Allah. I think at times he goes, "Oh, what is that? That's not a foul." Yeah, Allah, it's a foul. The guy has a black eye. His nose is crooked and broken, and he got elbowed in the jaw. It's a foul. It's a foul. It's crazy. And then when Fred VanVleet he didn't do a double dribble, but he did a carry, and he's pointing out on the replay, oh, how do you miss that? I don't know. It's something with Allah sometimes rubs me the wrong way. I do agree with you on that. I'm not going to overreact. I'm really not. I just want to see what this team does. And if they come out on Tuesday night and they do something pretty similar, well, then I think it's okay to continue this conversation and get more into depth. It's okay to look deeper if you see common problems occur again. If Tobias and Seth and Danny and these players all struggle to shoot once again, I don't know. I don't know how to feel because I think there are better shooters than this. I don't think that they're the best shooters in the world either. I do think you struggle in that area. Danny Green is a shell of himself at this point. This is more the Seth Curry than he is, not so much the 62% that you've seen. So you need to find this medium here. I don't think they're this bad. I don't think they're as great as they've shown in the earlier stages of the season either. They're somewhere in between, and if they are somewhere in between, is that enough to come out victorious? I don't know. Only a performance like that will show me if that is good enough or not. I do think they need to be stronger defensively at times. If their MO is going to be, hey, we are a top-tier defensive team, I thought at times they let their foot up off the gas, and that's not going to be okay. This offense needs to be created by their defense. If you go 7+ minutes in the fourth quarter without delivering a field goal, put the clamps on and allow that to start something in transition. Please. Now, there were moments in the fourth where I think that they did a better job at defending, but big picture-wise, I think that they needed to add another layer to it for sure.
Hey, Brodes. I've been watching the show for a little while. I actually came across the channel by accident. Love the content. Love the work you're doing. Keep up the good work. About this game tonight against the Raptors, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about this team at this point. I mean, I know you did your little 20-game observation, and I think that was fair. But, I mean, these last, I'd say, 10 or so games, I think we really are starting to see the flaws in this team. And
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm sorry to cut you off there. It looks like the phone call kind of cut off. But the moral of your call makes sense. The team has flaws, and you're starting to see that the team has flaws the more and more that the season continues. And I guess where I stand is I knew that. I somewhat figured that. I knew that there would be a moment where they dove back more into reality. And I just look at, and I always bring this up, but it is a reality. Last year, they were abysmal. You don't fix that abysmal roster in one offseason. It's just nearly impossible. So they make more sense. They don't make perfect sense. They still have issues, but it takes time to fix all of the problems from last year to this year. Now, I still think because the East is not very strong, and a lot of other teams are having problems, and that's what keeps you more into this. The Boston Celtics are struggling. Did you see what happened against the New Orleans Pelicans? Did you see what has happened to this point with Boston in general? Okay? The Milwaukee Bucks go through streaks of losing a bunch in a row. The Nets are starting to get into rhythm, so they are starting to be that scary team. But there is no LeBron Cleveland Cavaliers. There is no LeBron taking over the East. There is no Kawhi Leonard. So the fact that this team isn't perfect doesn't mean it's the end of the world because of where the Eastern Conference is this season. They can hang with, we've seen their best. Their best can hang with the best of the Eastern Conference. And maybe that isn't because they are necessarily so fantastic. It's more telling you where the Eastern Conference is, the state of the Eastern Conference. But that's fine. Truthfully, I don't give a damn. I just care that they're in play. And I still think that they are in play, even with the flaws that we discussed. But I think it just needs to be recognized that there are flaws because it takes time for you to build something after some bad contracts are in play. And that's where we're at. So I hate to say that I'm just satisfied with them having flaws because of where they were, but I'm just trying to look at this logically here. And because I know how it works. And I've seen teams switch regimes, and I've seen teams get new GMs, and I've seen teams make mistakes and then have to, balance them out over the next year or two to find exactly the right pieces and to get the right puzzle pieces. It doesn't happen overnight. So you are starting to see flaws because they're not a perfect team, but with the state of the Eastern Conference, I guess that you're still in the mix. So if you look at it from that perspective, maybe that keeps you a little bit happier. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in their next matchup against the Toronto Raptors. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this postgame podcast, and I will see you next time.